Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello everyone. How are you feeling today? I look very excited at this time of the day. Firstly, I think when the gentleman started by introducing me as the youngest minister, usually the pressure then becomes much bigger. But it's telling of the direction which this new Malaysia will bring us to. While I'm the youngest, we also have the oldest prime minister, not in Asia, but in the world. But that combination of fusion signals a new direction for Malaysia. That everyone, every person, young and old, people of different races and religions, of political creeds, are needed to combine our strengths and weaknesses together to move Malaysia forward. Because it's not only about Tun Dr. Mahathir, it's not only about Syed Saddiq. The new story or the new Malaysia which will be forged is a story which will be forged by the hands of all Malaysians. And that's why one of the very first few things which we did as soon as we get into government was to decentralize power. We tried our best to ensure that the anti-fake news law will be taken down, facing some problem in Senate, but it will definitely be taken down in less than 1 year. We ensured that student rights and autonomy are well respected to ensure that the voices of young people will not just be voices of dissent and unheard of, but their voices will be taken into account in moving Malaysia forward. We ensured that the media can openly criticize the government in order to formulate good public policies to challenge and combat corruption in ways which we have never seen before. Just 1 week ago, all ministers were compelled to declare our assets. Being the youngest cabinet minister, it was very easy for me to do so because there's not much to declare. So I take pride in saying that I was the first, but as the Minister of Finance pointed out, it's easy for me because not only am I young, I'm single as well, so not much to declare there. But these are serious steps which the new government is taking. It's to ensure that power is returned back to the hands of the people, to ensure that abuse of power no longer takes place, to ensure that the rakyat's power, kuasa di tangan rakyat itu, will truly be the way in which we move Malaysia forward. But while we discuss about all of this, how then will young people be treated in this new Malaysia? Will they only be bystanders? Will young people only be represented to a token by having a few representatives in cabinet? Or is it about serious youth empowerment in which young people will be represented in every single layer of government, in corporate entities, so that in the end, the voices of young people will echo well in the corridors of power and will no longer just become bystanders, but they will become frontliners in moving Malaysia forward. As the Minister of Youth and Sports, I'm tasked to do this, and I'm very serious about it. Previously, we've only focused predominantly on sports. Not to say I'm not a sporty person. I can take you on rugby, football, and hockey, and I can try my best to ensure when I was in military school before. But this new government, especially in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, wants to focus a lot more on the youth element of that ministry. And that's why we've announced the move from the cabinet to reduce voting age from 21 years old to 18 years old. While some might say that this is unimportant, but in reality, adding about 3.7 million young people to the electoral roll means that youth power will truly be taken into account, and all political parties must start the process of bringing in the voices of young people, because if we keep on ignoring them, then those who ignore will forever lose the election. But it's also about bringing in greater education. It's also about ensuring youth representatives being there in all layers of government. That's why even from grassroots development, forget about having young cabinet ministers, look at the level of village chiefs. In Malay, we call it Ketua Kampung. Previously, the youngest who could be appointed will be 40 years and above. But now we have young village chiefs as young as 21, 25, 26-year-olds who are already respected within their own village to be appointed as a leader. What does this mean? It means that in this new Malaysia, every single layer of decision making, we want to have that young person there. Not only is the person who prepares coffee or tea for the CEO or the chairman, but to have a young person on the board. So it's not just about having representatives in government, it's also about having representatives in the corporate sector, in the private sector. Currently, I'm in talks with a few CEOs and chairmen to make this a reality, to ensure that more young people will be there on the board, to ensure that young people will become true change makers in Malaysia. But while we chart that future, we do it humbly, because we know that in an ever-globalizing world, we have to work with one another to move Malaysia forward. And at this very conference, when we talk about China, one of the rising global superpowers, we must discuss, debate, and engage in many dialogues with one another to ensure that there's a win-win cooperation to move us forward. As the Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir has stressed on, Malaysia's economic ties with China will forever be good and must always be good, because in the end, it is like a family. Even in the height of Cold War, Malaysia and China had really good ties with one another, that we were the first nation in ASEAN to solidify ties with China at the height of Cold War in 1974. And one thing which we can learn from China is that through previous administration like those in like Deng Xiaoping, which embraced free market capitalism, which opened up Chinese market, while at the same time have strong governance at its heart, was able to alleviate almost 500 million Chinese people out of extreme poverty. But that's because we embraced globalism together. We embraced free market, we worked with one another, because in the end, in this ever-globalized world, our fates are intertwined with one another. There's a phrase which I like to use, which is in Mandarin. I'm trying to remember, I always use this during times of election, and now election is over. I remember. 我们都是一家人. In the end, we are like one family. And that's true. While some countries want to build more walls, the best of countries build the strongest of bridges. And that's Malaysia and China. It must always be there, and the bridges must always be based on mutual trust and ones which foster a win-win attitude. Because in the end, our fates are inherently intertwined with one another. Previously, having a poor person in Malaysia makes everyone poor. But in an ever-globalized world, having a poor person in one part of the world, one way or another, will affect everyone in every part of the world, because our fates are interconnected to one another. So, as a youth minister, if previously we could have panda diplomacy, I think it wouldn't be unconventional for us to have a lot more exchange programs, not just among students, not just among university leaders, but also among representatives of all political parties, cabinet ministers, all who are young, to ensure that relationship between the top brass in China, from grassroots leadership to the top, will always be close, not just among the Prime Minister or the Premier, but also among grassroots leaders, also among the future leaders of China, with the future leaders of Malaysia, because in the end, our futures will be interconnected with one another. Thank you very much. I look forward to engaging with a dialogue with all of you. Thank you.